Welcome to the Sales and Marketing Playbook Unleashed, the premier podcast for innovative growth strategies, hosted by two seasoned experts. Meet Evan Pollan, the president of Pollan Performance Group, a master in sales coaching with over 2 decades of experience. Evan is not just a consultant, he's a force in sales, focusing on mindset, planning, and skill development. He's also the co-author of Selling Professional Services the Sandler Way. Joining him is Craig Andrews, partner and CEO of Beholder Agency, an expert in growth marketing. With 20 years under his belt, Craig blends marketing creativity with strategy to propel businesses forward, making Beholder Agency a leader in effective marketing solutions. Together, Evan and Craig are here to share their wisdom on winning strategies, best practices, and transformative insights that will fuel your growth. Get ready to revolutionize your sales and marketing approach right here on the Sales and Marketing Playbook Unleashed.
Hi, and welcome to the Sales and Marketing Playbook Unleashed. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of targeting your ideal prospect. Before we get too deep, I want to introduce myself. I'm Craig Andrews, President and CEO of Beholder Agency. We are the growth marketing agency for small to medium-sized businesses who are looking to grow their businesses every year after year after year. If you need help with that, be sure to reach out and we'll be sure to help you. And my partner in crime, Evan Pollan. Go ahead, Evan, and tell the world about yourself.
I will try to get it all out in a short period of time. Craig, great to be here with you on another episode of our podcast. I'm Evan Pollan, president of Pollan Performance Group, and I'm helping organizations that are really looking to accelerate their growth from a sales perspective, sales coaching, sales consulting, sales training, sales coaching, really helping organizations that want to up their game, convert a lot more of the opportunities that they're in front of, really exponentially grow their businesses. And I think today's episode is a good illustration of why it's so important for sales and marketing to be working in tandem. And again, what we want to really focus on today is the importance of targeting your ideal prospect. So let's start with, what do we mean by your ideal client? So today, what we want to do is have you think about the strategy to help you get in front of the clients that you enjoy working with. Those clients that the services that you provide, the products that you provide, these are the folks who really absolutely love what you do. They see the value that you bring to the table. They appreciate the value that you bring to the table. They don't see you as a commodity. They don't see you as replaceable, but they look at you as an integral part of your business. They're going to pay the prices. They're going to pay the fees that you're asking for. They're going to be easy to work with. They're going to appreciate what you bring to the table. And I think that's really the dream for most of us. We want to work with people who really see the value in what we're bringing to the table. We want to work with customers who enjoy working with us, who aren't nickel and diming us, and who are willing to pay the value because they see the value in what we bring to the table. So as a business owner, what you need to do to start is figure out, okay, what does that client look like for you? And Craig's going to jump into it in a minute, but everything from what does that customer look like to who within the organization is going to be buying your services or your product, who's going to be using your services and your product. And once we're able to identify that, we can then put together a strategy that's going to help put you in front of more of those opportunities more quickly and more easily. But if you don't know what you're shooting for, if you don't know what that ideal looks like, you're going to be working with a lot of folks who you're not happy with. You're going to be working with a lot of folks who don't really see the value that you bring to the table. You're not going to be happy with those clients that you're working with. So it's really key to get this down and get this clarified. Craig, do you want to kind of weigh in from the marketing perspective in terms of the importance of this? What happens when we don't know who we're looking for and who the right buyer is within the organization?
Absolutely. So one of the things I want to do before I go too deep into that, Evan, is kind of distinguish between the two from a marketing perspective. When we're talking about the ideal customer profile, we like to look at that in terms of, is it the right business to match the business that we're selling to? Right. So it could be something in terms of the company size, the industry, the revenue. It could be in terms of the number of employees and those type of criteria that fit the business model of what we're trying to approach. When I look at it a lot of ways, and you touched upon it yourself a little bit, I look at it from a buyer persona. So now I'm looking at who the individual within that company and what they like, what their style is, what do they read, how do they like to be communicated to. Those are important factors in terms of marketing. So make sure that both of those are hitting in the right way for you. So from a buyer persona, if they like to be called, you want to know that, because if you're calling them and they don't like to be called, now you're more of an irritant than you are in actually trying to get your point across from a marketing perspective. Obviously, from a sales perspective, Evan, you would say if they don't want to be called, don't call them, but you have to communicate with them in some way, shape, or form. That's why when you talked about the strategy, what's really important is to make sure that you're finding those people, as you said, who value what you offer, but you also can't be an irritant in the process of creating that value with them. So in terms of the other things that you reference here, in terms of what happens if you don't have that, you get turned off pretty quick. And I'll use an analogy. I like to watch certain shows every week. Every Tuesday, show that I like will come on. And I know it's coming on at 8 o'clock. If all of a sudden I turn on my TV at 8 o'clock and my favorite show's not on, now I'm really irritated. So imagine that from a marketing perspective to your client base, not knowing who your ideal client is. That becomes a big problem, right? And so now, if you know exactly who you're talking to, why you're talking to, all the things they like and they don't like, and they fit your ideal customer profile and they fit your ideal business size structure profile, you have a perfect conversation of having the value add in your sales approach. Any opinions to that?
Absolutely, and we may not get into it as much in this episode. But we're going to get to it in other episodes. There are lots and lots and lots of ways to get in front of your ideal clients these days. And once we kind of figure out what that persona looks like and how that persona wants to be communicated with, we now have a ton of tools at our disposal to be able to get that message across. But if we don't understand that up front, we're going to be throwing lots of marketing dollars down the drain.
That's a fact.
With the sales folks, they're going to be wasting a lot of time doing a lot of activities that aren't getting them anywhere.
We're going to go with our theme here, by the way: marketing blaming sales and sales blaming marketing, because a bunch of money went down the drain.
Absolutely. And guess what? The president, the owner, the CEO, the managing partner, pointing at both.
That's right.
And going, well, why can't you guys get your act together?
Yes.
So from a sales perspective, if we don't have that ideal target profile, if we don't know what the organization looks like, if we don't know what the right message is to be going into that organization with, if we don't know who we should be talking to, then what happens from a sales perspective is it's like a hamster running on a hamster wheel. We're going to be doing lots of activities. We're going to be really, really busy. But unfortunately, really, really busy doesn't always turn into additional business, additional revenue. Oftentimes it leads to frustration, and that frustration leads to less activity happening. So we really need to make sure that we know what target we're shooting for. And quite frankly, if we're shooting with a scope rifle and it's going to be a really targeted approach, if we're taking that approach with a tank, with a bazooka, but until we know what that ideal customer looks like, we're not going to know. So it's really, really important to get this clarified right up front. My guess
Let me ask you a question real quick. So you've seen a lot of people who've taken sales in-house with their business, right? And so you've seen salespeople who really hit that target well and start to really run with it, and you've seen the ones who kind of struggle on that hamster wheel. Kind of give the viewers an idea of what that feels like from a managing perspective, of the guy who's hitting the targets right on point, using the right strategy, and the one who's kind of just going along with it.
Absolutely. Typically what will happen, that person who's hitting the right target, life starts to become really easy for them. They end up putting less time, less effort in. What you'll see when you know that somebody's got the right message going out to the right audience, their closing percentage gets higher. their conversion rate is higher, the margin that they're making on what they're selling is much higher. And when you've got that person fishing in the wrong ponds, not going to the right, not getting in front of the ideal clients, this is what you'll see as a business owner. This is what you'll see as a sales manager. That salesperson who's not fishing in the right pond with the right message will say, hey, we need to change up our offering. We need to change up our product. We need to change up our service. We can't do it this way. We have to do it that way. Or you'll hear, our price is too high. We really need to drop our price, or we really need to change our service offerings. And, I don't understand what's wrong. I don't understand. Our prices are too expensive. Our competitors. And that's typically because they're not talking to the right people who are going to value the products, value the services that you're bringing to the table. But those are the things that you may hear as a sales manager, as an owner of a business, that lets you know, okay, I either, don't have the right person, or I've got this right person, but they are just not fishing in the right ponds.
Yep.
And we need to find better and different places for them to go to, or they're just going to continue to get frustrated, continue to burn out, and we're never going to see any production.
And what happens to frustrated salespeople, Evan?
Frustrated salespeople
start
being on the road a lot more. The amount of activity starts to go down. What you will hear from the really good salespeople who are fishing in the right places is, these are my 4 or 5 opportunities. This is what's going on with the opportunities. This is the value. This is when I expect them to close.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how many I think are going to close. Those people who aren't doing that, your salespeople are going to start to turn into weather forecasters.
Yep.
You're going to start to hear, hey, this one's kind of partly sunny. This one's kind of partly cloudy. There may be a storm front coming through, and you won't be able to kind of drill down into specifics.
Yep.
And you won't be able to get a real pipeline from those salespeople.
Which again slows down the productivity of the business as a whole. So let me counter that from a marketing perspective. And a lot of stuff that you're hitting upon really hits home from a marketing perspective. If it's not working, we must be offering the wrong product. So they'll go and they'll reinvent a new product. Not a good move. They're in a position where they're talking to clients who are willing to spend less money, and thus I'm discounting the service, probably losing money, if I'm being perfectly honest. We'll be in a position where the sales guy becomes a marketer and starts creating their own product or their own materials when they're out there on the road versus the materials that might have been researched in the first place. Those are the type of signs that you'll see from the one who's struggling versus the sales guy who's actually in the right pond, to use your analogy, who's in the right pond, who can use all the bullet points and hit it right on and already have the material, and the process is flowing real easy from a marketing perspective. They probably don't need to say much because all the information they would have seen prior to that particular salesperson in the right pond walking in the door.
And,
right?
and let me just jump in with a point here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in an organization where somebody's trying to customize everything, and no 2 customers are exactly the same, we've either got the wrong message, or we're in front of the wrong kinds of prospects. Because if you really know the value that you're bringing to the table, and in later episodes, we're going to talk about value props and those kinds of things, but you should not have to customize something every time you're in front of someone new. Again, that's a really great sign that something's gone wrong.
Yep.
And we're not in front of the right folks.
So as we transition on points here, Evan, the one thing that we talked about here, who are the people who don't have the ideal target. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong spot. Who when we're talking about focusing on high value prospects, right? So when you're talking about from a marketing perspective, when you're talking about the sales process and the marketing process, the process is the same. If I'm selling to a client that I'm getting $10,000 in a retainer perspective, who I'm selling that as a $10,000 retainer, or I'm selling to somebody who's $1,000 retainer, I'm still going through the same process. So the argument is why not go after the ones who are targeted better, who are going to do on a higher level, and that emulates that salesperson in the good pond, right? Because now I'm doing the same work. I'm setting up the same calls. I'm setting up the same meetings. I'm having the same referrals. I'm having all the stuff is the same, but I'm making less money on the back end because I'm not in the right pond, right? And I think that is the process in which we talk about in terms of valuing high value clients, is because now you're generally you're doing less work with the high value clients because they understand the value of what you bring and they trust you more, thus playing to the relationships from a marketing perspective.
Right. And in a minute or two, I'm going to kind of get into what we should be doing from a sales prospecting perspective to get in front of the right folks. But for some of you out there, real world, you have different services that you can provide and the different products that you're selling, and they may be at different price points, and that's perfectly okay. One of the things that you may end up doing to define things for yourself, for your business, is say, okay, we've got clients that fall into 3 different buckets. And I like to use a hunting analogy for this. Those small little clients may be rabbits. And again, from a hunting perspective. So again, you should know, what does a good rabbit look like for me? What size rabbit from a dollar perspective is too small? What services am I providing when I'm in front of that small client? And what does that buyer look like from my small clients? Again, with the hunting analogy, I like to use a deer for a mid-sized client. So what does a really good mid-sized client look like? What are the ideal services that I'm providing? What are we charging? What does that look like? Those elephants, those really, really big ones, those ones that 2 or 3 engagements over the course of a year can go 75% towards helping you hit your year. What do those look like? And how do I get in front of them? And we'll get to this in a minute when you talk about the plans. How we get in front of a rabbit may be much different than how we get in front of a deer.
Yep.
But we may know for our clients, okay, I want to bring in $5 million in revenue this year. And of that $5 million, $3 million are going to come from those elephants, from those 3 or 4 really large engagements. $1.5 million are going to come from those, mid-size, and 500,000 are going to come from those small ones.
Yep.
And now we can put together plans for each of those personas and each of those different kinds of clients. But when we don't know what that ideal client looks like, we don't want to bring in small clients because we're discounting the same services that we're providing to a deer, but we got somebody who didn't see the value, so now I'm discounting it. We may not be making any money on that. So again, we need to clearly identify what those different personas are and then develop what that plan is going to look like, because that marketing and sales plan that I'm using to get in front of those elephants is probably going to look a lot different than that marketing plan that I'm using to get in front of the rabbits.
So let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this from your perspective. If you're in a situation that you don't know the difference between your rabbits and your deers and your elephants, how can they find that out? What's a good anecdote to figure out which one they fit in?
So for companies that are a little bit more mature, the best thing to do is, at least to start, is to go back and look at the past. Let's look at our clients over the last couple of years. The large clients, what were the dollar amounts for those clients? And again, let's kind of level set, where that large client starts. What kinds of products or services were we delivering to those clients? And is that something that's replicatable? And again, same thing for the mid-size, same thing for the small. The other thing, and sometimes people get stuck on this, businesses evolve over time. So when I started my sales training and sales coaching business, something that would be a small amount to me now was a large amount back then. And for me, an elephant may have started at $10,000 when I was first starting out. Now for me, an elephant may not start until $100,000. And again, as you evolve over time, as you have different offerings, as you get more mature as a business, that will slowly change over time. But if you're doing a really good job tracking both your sales and your marketing, you should know for all of your clients who they are, what their dollar value is, and what sales and marketing activity got you in front of those things. And what you'll find is, when you can take a historical point of view, you can go back and look at, okay, is there a consistent way that I got in front of the really large opportunities?
That's right.
And then how do I replicate that? And how are we bringing in the small ones? And again, if they're hitting the website, is there something from a marketing and SEO perspective we might be able to do if we can handle the volume to get the uptick of that coming in? But if you're not tracking these things, if you don't know what to look for, it's going to be really hard to find it.
I'm going to have you repeat that again, because you and I have both had conversations when we ask clients, have you been tracking what you're doing? They say, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I've been tracking it. Yeah. Okay. What's the data? So repeat it again for them.
Right. We need to be tracking on a regular basis. And if we can't track it, we can't measure it, it's going to be really, really difficult to replicate it.
Yes. And that's why they bring in the big guns like us. Then we start making them track it.
Right. And again, a lot of times what I'll hear is I was too busy. We didn't have time. We were just trying to keep up. Mm-hmm. And one of my clients told me this saying just a couple weeks ago, and I find it to be true. Sometimes you have to go slow to go fast.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you need to slow down, identify what's working, be able to track that so that you're not making the same mistake over and over again. And you can do something the right way the first time and have a process around it versus screwing up 5 or 6 times before maybe possibly, hopefully getting it right.
And I'll tell you, I know we're getting a little bit off the topic here, but this also permeates into the future of hiring too for your company, right? So immediately somebody goes, I need somebody to handle that piece. And you bring them into that cluttered mess of not understanding what's working and not working. And then you're blowing even more money, right? So now that type of knowledge of information going slow before you go fast will allow you to onboard somebody else who can help you if you grow too fast. Using your analogy of the rabbit, deers, and elephant. If you all of a sudden grow to the point where you need elephants at a different level, you're going to need help, right? But if you don't know how you got there, it just happened to fall into your lap. That's why all of these things from an ideal customer profile comes into play, from the companies you're trying to target and the individual from the buyer persona is important, because that works its way through your whole business. And now if you nail that down, you're starting to move like clockwork, and it's going to go fast at that point.
And quite frankly, if you're not tracking your pipeline, looking at your business holistically, you're not going to know when you're going to need to add additional resources, have additional inventory, know when, if you're a service business, when you're at capacity and can't take on anymore, if we're not tracking these things over time.
And from a marketing perspective, you fail a client, because remember, we talked about in earlier episodes, marketing is about relationship. You fail a client, you lose a client, you're now working twice as hard to get a new one versus keeping the ones that you already have happy and keeping growing and getting referrals from that perspective.
So, and Craig, do you want to share with folks kind of some of the different tools or some of the different ways that you are able to have them kind of track what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, and so they can really kind of see how the plan's going and fine tune it over time?
So yes, there's a lot of tools out there now. I think in the last count, from a marketing perspective, there's something like the Power 5000. It's actually a graph I'll have to find and post somewhere, but it's a graph of there's about 5,000 marketing tools that people use to be able to track almost anything, right? Whether it be your website, whether it be your CRM, whether it be your way of collecting data on the particular types of clients you're trying to go after. So there's not really one that I endorse completely, because there's always new ones coming out regularly. But the ones that I do like, if I can, there's no what's it called, sponsorships here, but I like Zoom Info. I like HubSpot. That's really good for us. And there's more, right? There's all types of software and
Craig, don't sell us short. If somebody wants to sponsor the Sales and Marketing Playbook, please reach out to us and we'll see how we maybe incorporate that into the show.
Touche. Are you guys listening? Are you listening? Another one that actually a client introduced me to, which was really good, is a Lead Feeder. It does a really good job of actually tracking your website, tracking the people who come to your website, letting them know where they've been on your site. And actually what it does is it actually ties to your LinkedIn, and it shows all the people in the company, right? So part of what we're talking about here in terms of the buyer persona and talking about from the ideal customer perspective, that particular software puts both of them together, right? So it'll say, hey, this company from said industry came to your website, and here are all the people who potentially are connected through LinkedIn who are in that company. Very well done. I'm actually probably looking to get into that. And my client turned me on to that because that's what they've been using for years. And so there's a lot of software out there, but not every software is built for every company.
Yep.
That's the important thing to understand. You have to find the one that's going to operate and make you more efficient and give you true data, because there's a lot of software that collide with each other, that some gives you some piece of information, some gives you another, right? But if you're buying two pieces of software, which one do you trust, right? So from a technical perspective, it's a little dangerous to say this particular software is better than another. I know of people actually in Zoom Info who use Lead IQ, which is a whole nother software that's like Zoom Info, right? So they like to have compiling data, and if it helps their business, that's fine. But there's really no one answer to getting the data. You just want to make sure you can trust it, you can apply it to the different ideal customers and the buyer persona, and it gives you data that allows you to take actionable steps moving forward.
Right. And I think the key is what we talked about earlier. We need to define what we're looking for first and define what success is. Otherwise, you're just going to be on data overload, not really understanding what you're looking at and not helping you to advance forward.
And you get into a little tunnel of it, right? You can paralysis by analysis.
Paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
I call it the getting ready to get ready syndrome.
There you go. The getting ready. Let's go. We're gonna copyright that. The getting ready to get ready. Yes. So from a technology perspective, to sum it up, you have to be careful. You have to make smart investments, and you have to make sure that information is company wide, right? Because again, you don't want a salesperson or a different person in the marketing department using totally different software that you guys, business owner, CEO, partner, or whatever, is not understanding the data, because you guys will be going down different roads easily. Yep. That's one of the first things that we do with our clients, is we get everybody on the same track. Because again, what they're throwing back to me, we use in another episode, hey, I got 4,000 opens, and I'm going, how many of those opens converted to customers?
Right. Totally and I think our next episode, we're going to hit on accountability. And again, the metrics and knowing what we're looking for and keeping everybody on the same page and keeping everybody accountable goes a very long way.
Very long way.
Towards the difference between success and failure.
And the transparency is very important, right? If you're not transparent, you're already in trouble. If the CEO is holding something away from the sales manager, what's the logic behind that? Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yep. So I hope what we talked about today in terms of the importance of targeting your ideal prospect, because this is really going to frame what we're going to be talking about in future episodes. Again, if we don't know what our destination is, going to take a lot of luck to end up there by accident. So again, we really need to know what that ideal target is, who that buyer persona is, so that then we can develop strategies around how we're going to get there. And really looking at, okay, once we identify those things, okay, what's my budget for marketing and sales? How much time does our people have to get out there? What does an ideal client look like? And again, how many clients do we need to bring in? And then how are we measuring ROI for all of that sales and marketing activity? And really kind of looking at all of those components as a part of our sales prospecting plan. But again, it starts with, who are we looking for?
That's right. And I think that is something that's going to also be a common theme among every episode that we have here. If you guys have been listening, you'll hear that there's a common theme about all of it. And it's a constant refreshing of that information. Even in Evan's example, a reference to when my rabbit, deers, and elephants have shifted, and now I'm doing more, you have to revisit the plan and make sure that you're staying on track. And after you figured it out from an owner perspective, business owner, CEO, you then have to put that down the line to the staff that's working with you as well.
Yeah, and it's really a 3-step process. We need to develop the plan, execute the plan, maybe 4 steps. Develop the plan, execute the plan, track the plan, fine-tune the plan, and then do the whole thing over again.
Over and over again. It's almost boring success. But once you don't do one of those steps, that's where it gets real dangerous.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add to this episode, Evan, before we check out?
No, I think we're good. Let me just share with folks some of the things that we're going to be hitting on upcoming episodes. Next time, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic, which is accountability. We are going to be talking about how do you develop a customized elevator pitch that's going to get that value proposition out there. We're going to talk about value propositions. We're going to talk about personal branding. We're going to talk about how do you differentiate yourself from the competition. So those are just some of the topics that we will be covering in upcoming episodes.
And for you people who have just recently subscribed to us, I want you to know that you can see Evan's beautiful face, my beautiful face, right here on YouTube and see full episodes. We're also on all the major podcasts, whether it be Amazon, whether it be Spotify, or the rest, Apple. You can go and check that out as well. And also, we're going to be starting to introduce other people into the podcast as well down the line. So make sure that you go to the YouTube at SM Playbook Unleashed and watch our full episodes. Like, comment, subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. We'll take a look at them and we'll try to answer them on the next episode. Again, I'm Craig Andrews. This is my partner. I keep messing that up. This is my partner in crime, Evan. And you have just witnessed the Sales and Marketing Playbook Unleashed. Till next time, everybody be cool.
Thank you for joining us on this exhilarating journey through the world of sales and marketing. Remember, the playbook is in your hands and the possibilities are limitless. Keep exploring, experimenting, and innovating, and watch as your business reaches unprecedented levels of success. Don't forget to subscribe to the Sales and Marketing Playbook Unleashed on all major podcast platforms, and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn for even more exclusive content. Until next time, keep hustling and keep winning.